Hello again, welcome to the Player Next Gen product session. So Player Next Gen is in fact our enabler for making digital engagement everywhere. So that's a very important piece of our strategy and offering. So let me address several points about Player Next Gen. The first one, and we have already said that in the past, we are really focusing on making sure the performances that are delivered by our player technology are increased. Not that much to make a super sophisticated experience than to run what you have been running on Windows Intel, now on much lower powered devices such as Raspberry Pi on Raspbian or on low-end BrightSign devices. Second, we want to offer developers, the ability to extend our technology, our player technology, in a much easier way. First, by offering the ability to use TypeScript, which is a very modern programming language, much safer than JavaScript, but looking like JavaScript. And we'll offer what is called a component development kit to accelerate the interface asset creation based on GitHub. Third, this player technology will have numerous new capabilities compared to the current player technology. Let me mention two out of many. First one is the ability for an interface experience to interact with the content of an HTML asset. So imagine that you have built your own JavaScript asset with some proprietary technologies and so on, and now you can embed such an HTML asset within an interface experience and get some and have your HTML asset being triggered by some action in interface directly from the composer, or the other way around, able to trigger some triggers within an interface experience. So bidirectional communication between an experience and your HTML asset. Another, I would say, much requested feature we are implementing is, as we do now with the integration with HCMS, we will also manage the result of any API request. Usually you build that using the API Explorer, so these requests are cached, so in case of issue with the internet connection, you will be able to retrieve this data and also add some filtering capabilities, much like you do with Excel. So we are currently generalizing Excel, headless CMS and API access through one single mechanism for caching and filtering. And last but not least, and I will show you again what it means, we can repurpose any experience that you were running in Venue through a player now on the web as a full web page or an iframe or as a PWA application, progressive web app. So let me show you a couple of videos. First, illustrating the increase in performance. So in that first video, we are showing an experience that has been built for Microsoft running on Raspberry Pi. As you can see, we get almost, I would say, we get the same performances as if that experience would run on a Windows device, or even you will see at the end of this presentation or directly as a web page on a Windows device. Second video here is another experience that we have just delivered to BrightSign, a team for their use on their BrightSign booth at ISC last week. As you can see, the performance are also pretty good. That's why they ask us to deliver that experience to them for illustrating the fact that you can do interactive touch-based experience with a BrightSign device. So this is running on XT device, but that could run as well on an XD or even on an HD BrightSign device. And now the third video that some of you might have already seen on the web, on our website, is a comparison between a manually coded application running on the Samsung Kiosk powered by Tizen and the same application that we have rebuilt. So we are playing a little game here, trying for you to guess which side has been created with interface and which other side has been coded manually. And the big difference between both is not the performances, which are almost the same, but the time and the resources needed to create that experience. So at the end of the day, that's 2 months for manually written, manually coded experience using JavaScript and so on Tizen, plus you need to have a know-how of Tizen, its limitation and so on. And on the other hand, it took us 2 days for building exactly the same experience. So demonstrating again the power of interface and how much you can go faster with that technology compared to manual coding. Now let's have Seb showing you how to create an interface asset using the Player NextGen CDK. Seb, the floor is yours.
All right, let's see how to create these custom interface assets for the Player NextGen using TypeScript. First of all, as Vincent mentioned, this is a preview of what will be available to you when we make generally available the Player NextGen. And let's have a look first at this article that we will publish in the Help Center with all the instructions you will need to follow to build this IA, this interface asset. For those of you who are familiar with creating IAs in JavaScript or in .NET for the previous generations of players, you will see that this is much easier. So first of all, you will find a bunch of prerequisites, some things you need to install on your PC, such as Visual Studio Code, which is a free tool from Microsoft, Node.js, and a bunch of other dependencies. Then you will find these command lines that you will need to type in your terminal in Visual Studio Code. This will create a blank project with some templates, and we're going to have a look at that. Once you have entered your code in this template, the only thing you need to do is to do this npm run build. This will create a package for the interface set that you can then copy into your composer folders. And I'm going to show you that. And then you have a quick section about testing But again, let's jump into Visual Studio Code. So I have created this project earlier. I'm taking a very simple example of a calculator where we want to do A plus B. So when you run these command lines, you will get a bunch of files, including a main TS file, TypeScript. This will be your main file in which you will write your code. This will include 3 examples, one for a property, one for a trigger, one for an action. And from there, you can just add as many properties, triggers, or actions as you need, and just reuse these examples. So in our case, we need one read-only property, the result of our operation. Constructor, nothing particular to do. We'll have one trigger which will be raised when a new result is generated. And we can add a parameter with the actual number, the actual result. And then the most important thing is our action. We want to add 2 numbers, so we need 2 parameters, A and B. So input A here, input B here. And all the decorators, the metadata that you see around these parameters or around the actions will be used by Composer to display this action in a user-friendly way for the Composer user. A little bit like you had to manually enter this info in the IFD file before. Now you just do it here as a decorator in the code, and the build will handle creating the IFD. So in this action, we just do a simple thing. We say result is equal to input A plus input B, and then we raise the trigger. Trigger is like an action, so you just need to call this function and pass the parameters that you have declared when you created your trigger. Once you're good with your code, as I said, just npm run build, you hit enter. This will create a distribution folder that will contain the IFD, no more messing around creating this thing manually, and some JavaScript files that are generated automatically. So when you have that, you can go into your folder here, calculator demo, that's my code. If I go into the dist, these are the files which have been generated, and you will copy them into your My Documents interface assets, same as before, right? So I have this calculator demo here. That's where the files will be available for Composer. Going into Composer, the interface asset will appear in the same panel as before. So when you click on the Add an Interface Asset, just search for our calculator demo, select it, add it to your project. If we have a look at the X-ray panel, you will find this result, and I had a typo here before recording. The trigger, new result available with the parameter, and the action add numbers. I'm not going to show you how to build the experience, it's a simple one, but just one example here on this add button. I'm actually calling the add numbers action available on this interface asset, and you can see the 2 parameters we declared, which are bound to our text inputs. That's about it. The last thing I want to show is in project, you will be able to select the player next gen when you hit play, and this is where you will be able to debug your code. Let's have a look at that. So when your experience is launched, just do a Control-Shift-I to open the DevTools. Make sure you have the focus on your player. This will open the Chrome DevTools as if you were debugging a regular HTML page. Among the sources, do a Control-P, you can find your calculator demo.ts. Add a breakpoint, for example, here in this add numbers. And now if I punch in some numbers in my text input and click the add button, you can see the breakpoint stops here. I can see my 2 inputs, and I can then go step by step and debug my code. And that's how you will be able to create interface assets in TypeScript for the player next-gen. Thank you.
Let's discuss now our web capabilities. Now I'm showing you our web page where we are showcasing these capabilities. So the URL is interface.com/web-showcase, very simple one. And here is a very simple web page where we have embedded an experience running with the player next-gen runtime. This experience has been built for Microsoft So let me touch the screen or click on it, and that's a very simple wayfinding that is showcasing all the partners in the Microsoft booth during that show. For example, let me click one, and I have the description here and where that booth is. Let me click another one. Here is a booth. I can select. So I'm playing with a lot of Excel filtering, and you can see how fast it is thanks to the AWS infrastructure we are using, including their CDN capabilities to speed up the availability of content everywhere in the world. Right, so pretty fast here. All right. And the code to embed such an iframe is very simple, very standard iframe, and you can just, copy and paste and change the URL of that web experience. We'll come back to that URL a little bit later. So that experience can be embedded in a web page or can be used as in itself as a single web page, or I can install it as a progressive web app. So let me do that right now. So I will install it. So that's a pop-up we have just seen that is part of the interface capabilities. So you can customize that as you want. And when a user is accepting that install, you get the official install message from Google Chrome. So let me install that. And here you go, you have a progressive web app. Same capabilities here, of course. And let me show you now on my desktop where that app is. So let me go to my desktop, and here is the app I just saved on my desktop. Right, so let me kill that one and call that again. Here you go. Touch the screen, and here is my app, which can, as a user, I can uninstall at any time. All right. So let me come back to that page. Here you go. And if I don't want my app, my experience as an app here, just as a single web page, here you go. Again, so an experience on the web can be embedded as an iframe into another web page, or appears as a single web page, or be transformed as a PWA. Now, how to get your experience published for the web? You will be able to see a new tab in your My Experience dashboard. That new tab will be called Publish as a Web Page. And then you will be able to get some statistics. So let me go into more details now. As you can see, we are able to monitoring the number of page views per month, and exactly tells you how many views has been done or consumed this month out of your quota. In that case, this account has purchased a 2-pack of 5,000 views per month, and that's just the beginning of the month, and there are 25 views for that experience, but the account has many other experiences published, and we aggregate all these views during the months, and in that example, the account has 387 views so far for all the experience owned by this account. So a pretty interesting views of how your experience published on the web is doing. To close that presentation, let's now discuss the Player NextGen release schedule. Until today, we have worked with several customers on case by case for some of their experiences, and we have helped these customers either creating from scratch new experiences within the capabilities of Player NextGen, or help them migrating some of their existing experience into Player NextGen subset of capabilities. And so we have been pretty successful so far, and I can tell you that maybe a dozen customers have already published experiences on the web privately for their intranet mostly, but that's pretty impressive to see interface experiences out there running from a website. Starting this week, we are going to select a set of customers to let them use entirely the Player NextGen as it is now. So if you believe you absolutely need some of the Player NextGen capabilities, for example, if you have a web project, please send an email or call your favorite interface sales rep, and we'll go from there. Starting in early Q4, the Player NextGen will be more broadly enabled for any non-Windows project, and at the end of this year, we believe that Player NextGen will be used for any platform with the full interface capability spectrum. So thank you for having listening today for this presentation, and I hope you will start to use that new technology again with some caution at the beginning, and hope that by the end of this year we'll all be able to move you on that technology. Thank you.